welcome back
to Honey, I Birthed the Kids, Season 2. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm buzzing to be back actually. I know we've taken a little break, but
sorry about that.
That's all fine. We're
playing this baby when it's here.
Your fault.
Yeah, tell it off. For those of you that don't know, I just suffer with HG, so my sickness was absolutely horrific. And all the prep time we was meant to be doing for this to start in January just went out the window. Yeah. So between January and March was really when we was getting our heads together, getting our heads round this season. And here we are.
We are back with a bang.
Yeah.
Because we have a few new things in store as well that's coming. Mm-hmm. It's not just going to be the podcast, it's going to be a little extra bits which we'll find out at the end of the week.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting. So, and it's just nice to be back to speak to everyone, really.
It is. It's really nice to be back and kind of doing what we really want to do and talk about the sticky things that come with having babies and children. And with that, like you said, we've got some new things. So one of the things we're doing is every other week we're going to alternate whether we're talking about more child-led problems.
Yeah, information-y.
And then the other week we'll talk about pregnancy and babies a bit more in detail. So for our listeners that have had their babies, don't need to know any more about having babies because they're not doing it ever again, they can just skip every other week and vice versa, really.
But
So let's get started. We've started with childcare for our first episode.
It's quite fitting, obviously, because we've started back in April and obviously the funding has just come into place, which is very exciting for most working families, really. I think it is. The government saying that they're offering more funding to children younger is just incredible. And it just means that it just gives us out, because childcare is so expensive nowadays. It is really expensive.
And I think like with the new funding, it'd be really interesting to kind of hear everyone's perspectives on their own experiences with it, because as much as it is fantastic that there is a step in the right direction, it's still a very small step. And you know, how easy is it actually to get childcare spaces? And I know, I mean, even before this funding took place, with the funding that was already in place with 3 to 4 year olds, we were originally in a private nursery setting, and they were changing their pricing structure after COVID to kind of just recoup some of their losses, I presume. But it just meant that the funding wasn't going to benefit us for 3 to 4 year olds anyway, because where they were changing the minimum day requirement, we were going to be paying the same regardless. We just got an extra day, which is all well and good, but I didn't work that extra day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't financially any better for us. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear people's thoughts and what their experiences have been trying to get the funding and get the spaces for their children. We haven't had to do that yet, both of us. Like, one, I don't know, you're not sure what you're going to do just yet.
Exactly,
And well, Lily's born at the end of April, so we don't get it till September anyway. So watch that space, really.
But yeah, no, like you were saying about the spaces, obviously we're a bit unsure about what we're doing, whether to go to a private nursery or go to a bit more of a school setting. I'm just kind of undecided of what kind of I want for Finn, if that makes sense. But also I worked in a childcare background, and I have quite a few friends and like contacts still in childcare, and I speak to them and like, is there any spaces? And they're like, yeah, no, you have to come as soon as you find out you're pregnant to get a space. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't do that, so what do I do now? So I'm just trying to, I think that's the hardest thing, like, as well, nurseries as well at the moment.
What type of nurseries is it that your friends work at? Is that private?
Private nurseries, they're all of them work in private nurseries. They don't really work in school settings.
Yeah, because we go to a school setting, and I applied for, like, Harper's one, I applied like literally months before I wanted to start, because I knew the funding was going to kick in for Lily's age group. I did apply fairly early. I think I applied back in September for her nursery space, so 9 months before she would actually need it. And we've managed to get one.
So that's what I'm hoping. Like, I think in the next few months I want to try and just look at a few places, because he won't be going until the funding kicks in, which will be for him, because his birthday's in November. It won't be till January. So I've almost got like just under a year to really get my head around it. And financially for us, we almost want to wait until the funding, just because it is just really expensive, if that makes sense, and we just need that funding just to help cover a little bit, if that makes sense. Also, I think, like, obviously I'm able to be at home with Finn, so him going to nursery it is so that I can do a bit of my self-employed work, but it also, I think it's just so important for children's social skills and development, and that is one of the big reasons that I do want him to go, but I just want to find the right setting. Being in a nursery worker, you get to know settings and everything that kind of happens.
Come on, give us some details. Come on.
But that's the thing, like,
the good, the bad and the ugly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brace yourself. No, I'm joking. I do find that it is very dependent on how you kind of get a feel when you go round and view a setting.
Yeah.
You really get to feel with what the practitioners and everyone is about, the managers especially, and I think it's how you connect to them and you can tell how engaged they are with you. Obviously when I go in, I'll be very much like, well, they don't have this, so I'm going to have to try and be like... rein in a little bit. But I do know there are some incredible nurseries out there. And I do find I've worked in a private nursery and then a corporate nursery, if that makes sense, like a big company. And I prefer the smaller private company who've only got like 4 or 5 nurseries around. They're very independent and not like a big chain. I think in the big chain you kind of just get... this is what every kind
tick box exercise.
Yeah, it's not so much for the children. It's very much of it's like a business. Not saying the care isn't great, because I think it is incredible. Like if you find the right nursery for you and you connect and really get to know the teachers and have that really like relationship with them, if that makes sense. But I think it was very business orientated in a corporate-y nursery.
Yeah. Do you think the parents would have seen that as much as you would have seen it? Obviously being employed by them.
I think so, a little bit, because a lot of the parents would say to us like, just, oh, aren't you guys getting, like, say for example pay or something like that, and it's like, or the amount that we do, they're like, oh my gosh, you're here so long, like, or there's not many of you today, and it's like, yeah, well, this is what we have to stick by, if that makes sense. And you almost had so many rules and regulations, which you do anywhere, but you had to almost stick to them. Like, not stick to them.
They had additional criteria for their company.
Exactly. So, like, I think that's what it was, and I think sometimes it got don't want to say...
almost too much paperwork instead of actually looking after children.
Yeah, so when I was in the corporate nursery, it was very much so much paperwork day in, day out. And then I went to a private setting and I was like, oh my goodness, like, you actually... there is paperwork, which obviously you have to follow and do, but you have that more time to be with the kids, if that makes sense, and the children, like, and also I just enjoyed the environment more. Like, the nursery that I was at before was in like a building kind of complex, so a lot of offices were around, so that's why it was that kind of environment. But the other one was like on a farm, and it was just so different experience. I loved both of them.
What about like the child aspect of it? Because when you say farm, I'm like, oh my god, it's going to be a bit like child-led learning 100%, and I can never say this word, Montessori type.
Oh yeah, Montessori.
There we go. Type learning. Mm-hmm. Was that the case for both settings, or was one more than the other?
No, it was because you can get Montessori actual settings, but you kind of take a lot of theories from different people, and I think it really does depend on the practitioner themselves. Like, if I really enjoyed more of a Montessori kind of led learning, that's how I would do it with the children, regardless of the settings. But the like kind of farm environment, like, it was just a bit more relaxed, and it was solely let's focus on the children, and you were able to do stuff more with them because there wasn't so many rules and regulations, if that makes sense, because you had to follow to cover the company, if that makes sense. But yeah, the child-led learning and stuff is just, you almost have a bit more free range with a private setting, if that makes sense. So, but...
And tell us more, for those that haven't put their kids into childcare just yet, about key workers and what their roles are and what that means to be a key worker.
So key worker is I would say is one of the most important things when you go to a nursery. You need to, like, because that key worker is going to be responsible for your child almost. Like, I had quite a few key children, but you just get to know them, and you end up getting to know the parents and everything like that.
They can change a little bit as well depending on the relationship the children build with different practitioners.
Exactly. So we normally found if a child would get designated a key worker when they started, because it's good for the parents to have that communication, rapport of who they're. But if we found that in 2 weeks' time they formed a bond with another key worker, then we would say, this is what's happened. Their key worker is now so and so.
Does make sense.
Yeah, because they want that child to feel comfortable with that key worker, and key workers are just so important. They do all of the development for them. They do all the they mainly do all the teaching and everything like that. They write all their reports for you. They make sure that you have key. Oh my god! Just spat. Sorry, guys. But like, I'd created such good relationships with my parents, because I think the most important thing is communication with the parents, because they are the ones telling you what they want, like
for their child.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And like, if they want us to do certain thing, or like, you just don't want to break that communication barrier with the parents, because that's their children, and you want to I love my parents in both settings. Loved them, can't complain. I think they're amazing. I loved their children. I loved helping them learn and grow.
Hence why you were their children's key worker.
Exactly.
And so with both those settings, did you have electronical communication as part of the daycare?
So no, in my first setting it was all written, and that was just a lot.
Yeah, that's what I had when we moved Harper to a day nursery linked to a primary school. It was all written, and I just remember being like, must have such sore hands by the end of the day.
When it was like their like 6-month review and stuff like that, and you were doing all your like 12 key children and stuff, and you're like, oh my god, my hand is like and also I find when you had the paperback versions, parents didn't necessarily go in and check, because we had them on the walls and the parents could go out and have a look at any time, but because they were in a bit of a rush to get to work and vice versa and pick up, they just wanted to pick up and go home. They never got a chance to really sit and read the book, so a lot of the times I would photocopy their reports and give them to them, and then they could come in and sign it, so they got the chance to do it at home. But in the private setting it was all electronic, and that was just amazing, because the parents could comment back and say, this looks amazing, what were they doing here?
We had the same at the private one too, and when we moved over I was a bit like, what, I don't get pictures every day? What? I just see how many times they've gone for the toilet and what they've eaten.
I think definitely in preschool age as well, that becomes a lot less, because you almost expect the children to tell you what they've done.
It's been actually the opposite.
Oh really?
In my experience.
Oh wow.
And I don't know if it, again, because it's linked to a school and they might do it through the school. But Harper's preschool now is back to digital.
Oh okay.
And we get parents' evenings. I know you still get them in nurseries and things, but this is now like every term we get to meet the teacher and
so
go
lovely.
in and have a chat and stuff.
They are nerve-wracking parent evenings.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're sat there like, oh my god, okay.
Do you say the same thing to every parent? Nearly.
Sometimes. No. Like, you do overall kind of communicate of how their children have been, if that makes sense, and then you just throw in like little things that they do, just to obviously explain to them like, this is exactly what they're doing, this is what we're going to work on. And also, like, I think sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to get really, like, will the teachers be honest if they're not saying like not negative, if that makes sense, but if they're struggling with stuff, like, you would never go in and be like, they're really not doing this and this. It'd be really overall really positive, because the children are still learning.
Yeah,
and then you go,
so young
exactly
at this point still, aren't they?
But yeah, because I have a lot of things like, oh, it's like, it's really positive report and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, well, it's not going to be like, they can't do it, they're children, like. And I think that's the only note, like, sometimes when you're like, oh yeah, I really think we need to work on this, and the parents are like, well, they do it at home, and you're like, okay, well, can you provide us evidence of that then, like, just so it corresponds with everything. But yeah, no, your parents even, it's nerve-wracking, because you almost have to prep yourself to make sure that you're saying
and I
stuff.
guess as well, like, you've gone into that role to look after children, not to kind of tell parents what they're...
Exactly,
You don't go into that role thinking, I'm going to boss parents.
Yeah. I definitely, because I worked at one setting for so long, I really got to know all the families.
Yeah.
And that kind of environment, they were like, oh, you're right, Scarlett. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Like, so and so. Like, and you kind of, you have that chat with
easier,
them. It was, yeah. Oh, it was.
Oh, sorry about that. Someone, that means the girls are home. Quick, let's silence that before.
Finn will be happy.
I don't even know where it is, you know.
Oh, on the floor?
Probably.
Oh, there.
Oh, here we go. Oh, there we go. Let's make that nice and quiet.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't.
Families.
Yeah, I think that would, and that's the hardest thing, is when the children move up to school, because you build such a relationship with all of them, and then you see them around like 2 years later, and they're like, I don't know who you are, and you're like, oh. Like at my old setting, I was very fortunate. I moved rooms because I was doing my course, and it was my course. I was doing my level 3 and stuff like that. So you have to move around rooms. And I was fortunate enough when I was doing it, I ended up going to each room with the key children. So I literally moved up from the baby room all the way up to preschool, but then COVID hit, and it was like their last year, and we didn't get to say like the proper goodbyes, if that makes sense. And it like broke my heart, because I was like so excited for graduation with them. I was like, I've known them since they were like 1. And then I saw one of them around town, and they're like, my parents are like, hi Scarlett, they're like, do you remember? And they're like, no, I don't have a clue who you are. And you're like, I had such a great time with you.
Apple of your eye for so long.
Literally, like, and I think that's the hardest thing about nurseries, because I think this childcare workers, I really think, are like not given the, what's the word? Like given the
credit they're due.
Credit, that's the exact word. Because you think 0 to 5 is the most important part of a child's life. They're learning everything. And I just think childcare is seen as, they're in childcare because like they're just playing, there's nothing, like, do you know what I mean? It is all about play, it really is. But we are helping them learn to become little individual children ready for school. And I think people forget that in childcare settings. And that's why I say it's so important for children to go to nursery. Like, I definitely think, I'm really happy I'm with Finny all the time at the moment, but I do think he's getting to the age where I need to start thinking about him going obviously to nursery, because socially and his development, he will just thrive in that kind of setting, because that's all they do at home. You think you've got to do the washing, or you've got to do the cleaning, or you've got to do this in the house, so they kind of get left to play on their own, obviously if you don't have siblings. But at a setting, every minute of the day there is something going on, and their brains are learning and doing new things. So I definitely think, yes, being a stay-at-home mum is absolutely great, and I would never change it because I love it. But I also think having that 1 or 2 days a week where they go into a setting like that, it will really build their confidence, their social skills. And
you can be both. You can be a stay-at-home mum and still put them in to childcare for however long you want, really. I've really noticed, actually, it's so funny with Lily, I had so much guilt that, because with Harper we put her in, originally we were just going to wait till a year, but we put her in at 9 months because it was in the middle of COVID, and I just, first baby, like postnatal depression came in ebbs and flows, and I just needed a break. I was spending 24 hours a day with a baby that, you know, couldn't communicate. We were fortunate enough that Aaron could actually still go out to work for like the majority of the time during COVID, and so she was the only person I was ever speaking to, and it just really got on top of me. So we put her in at 9 months, and then she thrived. So with Lily not going until she's 2, I just have this like tremendous sense of guilt of being like, but she's missing out on a whole year of education. But it's so surprising how much she's picked up, because I mean, we do so much with her, but we don't actively go out of our way to teach her. And I know there is that fine line at this age anyway. You don't sit and teach a child at this age, but you know, in nursery settings, it's education-based learning. So they are learning as they play, and you've created a setting to allow that to happen. Whereas Lily knows quite a few colours. She can count to 10, not in the right order, but she knows her numbers.
That just reminds me of one story of the 4, 2, 1 blast off.
Exactly. So, but it's like we don't do any counting with her unless it's in a song, and it's just amazing how much she has actually picked up about being in a childcare.
It's probably because of Harper.
Oh, massively.
100%.
She's not an only child. Yeah.
That's why I'm like, siblings, yeah. They can play together, they can learn together.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely it is, childcare and nursery settings are just undervalued, like, of how incredible they were, especially when they were open throughout the whole of COVID as well. Yeah. And they almost didn't get, I remember, because obviously the key workers were like, all the NHS staff, everyone, and it's like nursery workers almost got forgotten. It's like, we're still here looking after everyone's kids, like...
Yeah, you were still counted as key workers.
Yeah, I think it was just a bit more like, we weren't felt like we were, if that makes sense.
At this point, were you working for the corporate?
The corporate, yeah, that's probably why we kind of we didn't feel valued enough. It was
like... Oh my gosh, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry.
We're back. Hello, we just took a bit of a break there.
You did not need to hear that.
No, you didn't. But yeah, so childcare, and I think just obviously wrapping up, I do think childcare is amazing, and I think allowing parents to go back to work, or even this funding allowing people who might not be able to afford going to nursery, but they can send their children to nursery and maybe do something for themselves. Like, do you know what I mean? In that time, I think it's absolutely incredible that the government are offering this to families, because it just helps out, and especially with the cost of living, of how everything's just got so expensive nowadays, that extra bit of just allowing the parents to just take a breath for themselves, maybe do some little bits that they need to get done, and have their children thrive in a setting. One thing I will add, don't go to a nursery just because it's round the corner and you get a wrong vibe with the workers. I will always stand by that. Go with your gut. If you know you walk in and you go, oh, this is amazing, but it's an extra 10 minutes away, go to the place that's extra 10 minutes away, because I'm sure you'll have a bit better experience than going, oh, that nursery's right on my doorstep, but the staff didn't really greet me when I walked in, like, I'm not too sure. Don't do it. That's all I'd say, because, but I'm going to be honest, that's just, if the staff aren't interested to be like, oh, hiya, how are you? What's your child's name? Like, this is what we do. Like, don't go, because they don't, this would be horrible, but they just don't seem like interested. I know everyone has their bad days, but as soon as that parent walks through the door, it's like you're selling yourself and your room to be like, come to our setting, like, we love it here, the children love it. But if the workers are like, yeah, hi. I know some obviously people won't want to talk, but especially the managers. That is a bit of the ugly, I feel like the good, bad and ugly side. But yeah, just go with your gut and you'll know what's right. You'll know what's right. That's all I have to say.
There you go. That is all she has to say.
But yeah.
We'll be back again next Wednesday at 10 a.m. available to listen on Spotify or watch on YouTube. And if you have any questions or want to send us your experiences with childcare, especially with the new government funding, hit us up on our socials, or you can email us in on our website at honeyiBirthkids.com.
And we will see you
next week.
Bye.
Bye,
guys.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Honey, I Birthed the Kids. We love sharing our own insights and experiences as parents, but that is just what they are. So if you're concerned by anything discussed today, speak with your GP, midwife or other healthcare professional. For more information about Honey, I Birthed the Kids, visit our social media platforms and website www.honeyiBirthedTheKids.com.